Muy bien, chicos, ya estamos con la diapositiva de la clase de hoy, que es el manejo de switches Tricaster, y vamos de frente con los temas. Clase 4. Como les dije, vamos a ver el ejemplo de una producción en vivo. Vamos a hablar sobre el croma, cómo se croma el proceso. Vamos a hablar sobre los sets virtuales y cómo es que se hace un set virtual. Vamos a empezar, como les dije, mostrando una producción en vivo. ¿Y cómo es ya una producción en vivo? Aunque yo sé que ustedes ya lo han visto, pero vamos a ver un ejemplo. A continuación veremos un video que resume muchas de las funciones que hemos visto previamente y nos mostrará más opciones que nos servirán para nuestra producción. Entonces le voy a poner este videito que es un poquito largo, pero como les digo, lo bueno es que resume bastante de lo que hemos visto hasta ahorita. Y van a ver las opciones pues, que tiene el Tricaster.
Now that we have everything configured inside of the Tricaster, we're ready to take a look at an actual live production. Let's look at the switcher and the downstream keys available in the Tricaster. The live switcher interface is located here in the Tricaster, and the same controls exist here on the 450 control surface. All the controls that you need to run your live switch right at your fingertips. Now, as we look at the switcher interface itself, there's a program bus, a preview bus, and a utility row, which can be delegated for 4 different uses. It can be an effects row, it can be the source selector for DSK1 or DSK2, and it can also be the selector for what's going out of the auxiliary video output. Now, over here we have our transition controls, and again, the transition controls are here on the control surface. And over here we have the transitions themselves for the background, and then the transitions and the controls for both of our downstream keys that are available in the switcher. Now, as we look at the switcher itself, you can see the 4 live inputs on the switcher. You can see that we have our 2 network inputs, the 2 digital disc recorders, the graphics player, a frame buffer, and then there are 4 virtual inputs, and we'll talk about those in just a little while. Now, of course, as you run a switch, you can run the switch either from the controls here on the interface or directly here from the control surface. And, of course, you can cut between 2 sources. Of course, you can do crossfades between those 2 sources as well. And the Tricaster features a variety of transitional type effects. Have things like trajectories, and right here on the control surface, you do have the ability to select from the effects that you currently have loaded. Now, of course, you can always pick up the mouse and you can click on any one of these effects to load that effect. But you also have the ability to use your selector knob right here, and by twisting the selector knob, you can choose the effect right from the control surface. Now, you also have the ability to control the speed at which these effects run. And right now, I'll just run the effect, and this is the default medium speed. So you have slow, medium, and fast available right here. And again, the slow speed is much slower, and the medium speed is a little faster, and fast is much quicker. Now, instead of having to grab the mouse to get to these presets, there is a rate knob here in the transition area on the control surface. And you can spin that, and that will give you a speed. It could be the preset, but you could go faster than fast, or slower than slow, or in between medium and fast. You can really dial in pretty much any speed that you want. But if you want to get back to the presets, this knob also acts like a button. And pushing the knob will cycle you through the presets that are available for the speed of the transition playback. Now, you also have the ability to play these transitions forward and to play them in reverse. If you click on the effect that you want to use, there's a little gear right here, right over the top of your effects row for the actual transitions for the background. And you can see by clicking on that gear, you have the ability to set the effect up to run either forward or reverse. You also have the ability to run this effect in the ping pong mode. And this is going to change the direction of the effect each time you run it. First time you run it, runs forward. Second time you run it, runs in reverse. This is great for flying on and flying off an instant replay or something along those lines. Now, these are not global settings. These are effect by effect settings. So you can literally set some effects to run forward, some effects to run backward, and some effects to ping pong. And again, it's on an effect by effect basis that you can do that. Now, you can also load up other effects. There are a large variety of effects that come with the Tricaster. And again, if you want to replace one of the effects that's currently loaded, you simply click on an effect, click on the gear, and then go to the pop-up and say you want to browse. This is going to load a media browser showing you all of the effects that are available for use in the Tricaster. You can simply find the effect that you want to use. I'm going to come down here to trajectories, and we'll do a nice stretch and fade up from the bottom here. And now that effect is ready to go. Now that seems to be running a little slow, so again, I hit my rate button here. Now I'm running a little bit faster. Hit the rate button again. Now I'm running at the fast speed. So again, very easy to adjust your effect speed from the rate knob right here. Now you can also adjust whether the effect is running forward or backward from the control surface as well. The selector knob that allows you to select which effect you want to use is also a button. And if you push down on that, it reverses the direction that the effect is currently running. And you can see on the interface that it changes from reverse to normal when you push that button. Now you also have a T-bar both in the interface and on the control surface to be able to run effects as well. You can left click and drag on the T-bar inside the interface, or you can manually grab the T-bar on the control surface and manually control these effects. Now, one of the interesting things about the T-bar is you do have the ability to delegate what it's going to do. Now, there are also two downstream keys available. Right over here, down along the bottom, we're working with the transitions to go from preview to program, but there are also downstream keys right above it. Now, these downstream keys can use any input coming into the Tricaster as a source. For instance, you can use the utility row to choose what source you want for each of the downstream keys. So you can click on DSK1, and right now we're using the graphics player for DSK1. And if we go to our graphics player, we have our title queued up there. And for downstream key 2, we're using our frame buffer. Now, the Tricaster has a series of frame buffers, and this is an area where you can copy an image or a title and then point the downstream key at that. It separates it from the graphics player, so no matter what's selected in the graphics player, you always know what's going to come up on the downstream key because you have sent that to the frame buffer. And you can change the frame buffer at any time during your production. Let's go ahead and bring both of the DSKs up over program out. Now, there are independent controls for the downstream keys here. There are also controls on the interface for both take and auto for each of the downstream keys. So you can either click on these with the mouse, or again from the control surface, we can just hit take and we can bring both of those downstream keys up. Now again, you do have the ability to use transitions to bring those on and off the screen, and it's the transitions listed right here. So you can, again, all the same techniques work that we use to load and manipulate the transitions down below, except for the fact when you're using a downstream key, your transitions are automatically always in ping pong mode because you're always going to fly that graphic on and then fly it back off with the same motion. So that happens automatically for you within the Tricaster. Now, one of the great things about any of the inputs in the Tricaster is that you can crop, scale, position, and rotate it. So we can take our overlay here, which is on DSK number 2, and I've got a positioner area of the control surface right here in which I can select what it is that I want to modify, and I'm going to say I want to modify downstream key 2. And now you have the ability to scale that down. Again, with the joystick, I'm turning the joystick like a knob, like a volume control, and that's scaling it. And then just pushing the joystick up into the corner. We also have the ability to rotate, so we can rotate that graphic around a little bit. And there's also a crop control there as well. You do have a reset button, so you can reset both of those variables. And again, the reset button only resets whatever is currently selected. So if you want to reset everything, you've got to hit reset for all of the variables. Now, if you want to be able to do those adjustments from the interface, you've got this little crosshair right here next to the gear. And if you bring that up, you have all of the same controls right here that you have on the control surface. So again, we can move this around, we can scale it. Now, when you're working with the controls on the interface, I would recommend working with the icons, not trying to scale the individual axes here. So just click right on the icon and you can just use the mouse. We can rotate that around a little bit. We can scale it up and down. And you have all the same controls right here on the interface that you have on main out. Now, it may be that you want to be able to set this up before you take it live, and you may already be live. So we can't set these graphics up, size and scale them and so forth on program out, but that's okay because all of this can be done on the preview monitor. So if we have DSK2 set up, yet we're not going to it yet, notice if I grab the positioner, you still see it, and it's only on preview. So I still have the ability now to scale this down, and of course I can take preview and I can put the same thing on preview and program, and now I'm seeing exactly where it's going to be when I bring that downstream key up. I can do my positioning and my rotation right here on preview, and then we can bring that up, and it's exactly where I want it to be the first time, every time. Now you can do a lot more than just stills and titles with these downstream keys. You also have the ability to do full motion graphics by using the DDR as the source for the downstream key. Now here in the DDR, I have a video clip that has alpha channel in it. I'm going to tell DSK1 to use DDR number 1. Now I'm also going to turn on autoplay and single in the DDR, and this is important. We only want the one clip to play. That's why we've turned single on. It'll just play the one clip and stop. And autoplay is turned on. The way autoplay works is anytime you switch to the DDR, it will automatically start playing. And when the clip is done, it'll automatically switch back to whatever's on preview and queue up the next clip. But this works even if you've attached that digital disc recorder to the downstream keyer. By activating the downstream keyer, if autoplay is on, it'll automatically start playing that DDR, and your full motion graphic will appear right over the top of program out. Now this full motion graphic was created in Lightwave, but these graphics can be created in any package that can create a video clip with alpha channel. So if you already have a graphics package that you're currently using, that can easily be imported into the Tricaster and used in the Tricaster's workflow. As you look at the T-bar, you'll see that there are 4 buttons above the T-bar. And these buttons are on the control surface as well, but only the first 3 of them are here, and then the 4th fade to black is down here. These buttons allow you to delegate what the T-bar is going to do. So, for instance, if it's on background, you're simply going to do a switch between whatever's on program and preview. That is our background layer. What's happening between program and preview and any transition that's happening is our background layer. Now, I'll go ahead and choose a trajectory here. So again, we're just going from preview to program. Now you can also delegate the T-bar or the auto button to run the downstream key. And we're going to go ahead and set our downstream keys back up. And what I want to show you is the preview monitor. As soon as I set this to downstream key number 1, the preview monitor gives you a real-time look-ahead preview as to what's going to happen. So if I only have the downstream key attached to the T-bar, when I pull it down, the downstream key is going to be brought up on program out. So if you look at preview, you can see that it's showing us exactly what's going to happen when we pull the T-bar. I pull the T-bar, the downstream key shows up. Now preview shows no downstream key because it's still selected and delegated, so if I was to run that T-bar again, it would take it off, a true look-ahead preview. If you select downstream key 2, you see the second downstream key. And again, pull the T-bar, it comes over program, now preview is empty, it's a true look-ahead. You also have the ability to assign multiple things to the T-bar or the auto button. You can delegate multiple processes to happen in one use of the T-bar or the auto button. You can do this by pushing the first button and holding it and pressing the second button. So I held down DSK1 and pressed DSK2. Now they're both delegated to the T-bar. If you look at preview, you can see both of the DSKs on preview. We pull the T-bar, it's exactly what we get, both of the DSKs coming in. If you want, you can do all 3, the background, DSK1, and DSK2. Now you see on preview, the background video is going to change, and both of the DSKs will be brought up. It's always going to show you exactly what you're going to get when you pull the T-bar. The last button is fade to black, and you need to really understand what this button does. When you hit fade to black and we pull down on the T-bar, it fades everything. It fades any graphics. I'll bring some graphics up here. And again, fade to black fades down all the downstream keys. Even the audio gets faded out completely. Now, this is a layer on top of everything else in your Tricaster layer. You've got background, then you've got DSK1, then you've got DSK2, and then fade to black over the top of the whole thing. So what you might do, now that you're faded to black, you're going to say, hey, I want to go back to a background switch, and I want to switch to what's on preview. Well, you can see that our preview is black, and the fade to black button is now blinking because it knows that if I do this transition, it's not going to do anything. It's still going to be faded to black. Before I do a background transition, I have to click on fade to black, and I have to remove fade to black, then go back to my background switch and continue working. So you've got 4 layers: your background layer, DSK1, DSK2, and then fade to black on top of the whole thing. And you've got the ability to delegate the T-bar or the auto button for any of those functions. You can also use any of the live inputs in the downstream keys, and this is great for doing a picture-in-picture effect. For instance, we're going to go ahead and select DSK1 as input number 4. And now I'm going to go ahead and put preview and program up. And again, we're going to go ahead and select DSK1 with our positioner. And as I start to position it, you can see there's input number 4. I can scale it down, put it over here in the corner, and rotate it around. And then again, when you activate that, it's exactly what you want the first time, every time. You also have the ability to customize the switcher interface to match your production needs. And you can relabel both the buttons on the switcher and the monitors that are associated with those channels of the switcher. On any button on the switcher, you can right-click and select Rename. And you get 2 options: the option to rename the monitor and the option to rename the button. So you have a lot more room on the monitor. Again, if I wanted to put Kiki's camera, Kiki camera, on the preview monitor, and I'm going to go ahead and rename the button just as Kiki. Now you can see that the button is labeled Kiki, the monitor here is labeled Kiki's camera, and this has also been relabeled on our multi-viewer. And if you go into one of our virtual input setups where there's another switcher, it's also been renamed in this switcher. So the renaming of any of the buttons or any of the monitors within the interface is propagated throughout the entire interface automatically. Some of the functions that you can do here from the control surface are also available as keyboard shortcuts on the keyboard. The space bar is an auto button, the enter key is the take button, and so forth. Now that's really nice, but if you're using a control surface, you may not want to have those active. You could inadvertently hit a button, a space bar or something like that on the keyboard during the fast-paced live switch, and it could give you an undesirable result. So there is a way to disable the keyboard shortcuts, yet keep the keyboard active. You may need the keyboard to be able to type things in, to change title templates, anything like that, but you don't want to have those keyboard shortcuts active. To do that, we're going to go to the little gear that's in the upper right-hand corner of the right-hand tab module area, right here. We're going to click on that gear, and all the way down at the bottom, we have Enable Keyboard Shortcuts. And right now, there's a check mark by it. I'm going to click on that, and now if we look at it again, you'll see that the check mark is gone. So now all the keyboard shortcuts are disabled. You can still use the keyboard to type, but you're not going to make a mistake and do something disruptive to the switch accidentally.
Bien, chicos, ese fue el video que resume bastante todo lo que hemos visto hasta ahora. El manejo básico de lo que es el switcher Tricaster. Vamos a pasar ahora a otro tema, otra de las funciones de este switcher. Como les dije en un comienzo, este switcher tiene varias funciones. No solamente es para seleccionar cámara, grabar, poner en vivo, sino que también tiene tituladora y tiene la opción de hacer croma. Vamos a ver ahora un poquito de concepto. El chroma key, o también llamado llave de color, es un efecto que consiste en extraer un color de una imagen determinada y reemplazar este espacio que ocupaba por otra imagen. Para hacer este efecto se debe grabar con un fondo azul o verde. Se suelen usar los colores verde o azul porque son los más alejados al tono de nuestra piel. La decisión de utilizar el fondo azul o verde dependerá del vestuario de los personajes y de los objetos que aparezcan en escena. A veces me han preguntado por qué el azul, el verde y no el azul. En realidad se puede cromar con cualquier color, pero los más amigables, los que responden mejor también a, a, a los lentes de las cámaras son los azules y verdes. Y sobre todo el verde porque por ahí que una persona puede ir con un jean, por ejemplo, o con algo vestido de azul, y eso se va a cromar. Entonces, se va a ver sobre su prenda un set virtual o una imagen que es la imagen que diera el fondo. El verde, ese verde llamativo, es un color pues poco común en una prenda, ¿no? Entonces, es por eso que se suele usar sobre todo el fondo verde. Ahora, ¿cuál es el procedimiento para cromar? He puesto acá unos pasos básicos. Esta es una opción muy básica, digamos, para cromar, pero que es la que funciona. Para hacer un buen cromado se deben seguir los siguientes pasos. Paso 1. Se debe iluminar al personaje y el fondo por separado. En el croma, chicos, deben tener en cuenta una cosa muy importante, que se logrará hacer un buen cromado si hay una buena iluminación. Ahí sí no depende tanto del equipo, de la cámara, del software que vamos a usar para editar, por muy buenos que sean. Si no han hecho una buena iluminación, les va a resultar difícil cromar. Entonces, la iluminación básica, la mejor para cromar, es, como pueden ver acá, hay dos tachos de luz dirigidos hacia el fondo. No dirigidos hacia una persona, sino dirigidos hacia el fondo. O sea, primero se ilumina el fondo, que el fondo esté y de manera pareja. A la persona se le pone mucho más adelante, miren dónde está, acá, porque no puede estar pegada al fondo. No puede recibir esta iluminación la persona. Estos dos tachos son solamente para el fondo. Y la persona va a recibir su luz principal, su luz que le va a cubrir de sombras y su luz de backing, ¿no? Algunos le pondrán de repente una cenital si quieren, no es tan necesario, pero este es un principio básico para hacer una buena iluminación, para cromar. Paso 2. El fondo debe estar iluminado lo más parejo posible, sin ninguna sombra. Como ven acá, no es que una zona esté más iluminada que otra, todo está parejito, bien iluminado con la misma intensidad. Paso 3. Si se utiliza una tela, este debe estirarse bien y evitar que se arrugue. Lo ideal es tener una pared verde, pero si no se tiene, porque bueno, para eso se necesitaría un estudio especial solamente para cromar, y asegurarse de que la tela esté súper estirada, porque si se arma un pliegue, una arruga, eso se va a detectar después a la hora de cromar como una falla de video, y eso no se puede corregir. Paso 4. El personaje a cromar debe estar alejado un promedio de 2 metros del fondo para que la luz de este no se refleje en él. Tampoco debe proyectar sombras sobre el fondo. O sea, lo que les dije hace un ratito, ¿no? La persona está alejada del fondo. Y estas luces del fondo son para el fondo, no para la persona. O sea, hay que tener bien claro que se ilumina el fondo, a la persona se le pone 2 metros delante y se ilumina a la persona. Paso 5. Es muy importante hacer una buena iluminación para que el resultado del croma sea satisfactorio. Bueno, lo que les digo, ¿no? Para que le salga bien el croma, hay que iluminar bien, ¿no? Este es un videito muy didáctico donde está resumido lo que les acabo de decir, así que vamos a verlo un ratito.
En verdad no es tan complicado que un chroma key salga bien. Sigue conmigo estos pasos y te aseguro que tu chroma key va a quedar excelente. Lo primero que necesitas obviamente es un fondo verde. Se suelen pintar algunas paredes con este color verde, pero creo que la mayoría, por un tema de practicidad, contamos con una tela verde. La venden por todos lados y no es complicado conseguirla. La mejor manera de montarla es usando un portafondos, que son estos parantes y una barra horizontal que también son fáciles de conseguir porque muchos fotógrafos la usan para retratos. Entonces lo esencial es el fondo verde. Es muy importante que la tela quede muy tensa, incluso más tensa de lo que lo he podido hacer yo para este ejercicio. Definitivamente esto influye a la hora de trabajar en postproducción, a la hora de hacer el croma ya en After Effects. Hay ganchos hechos para este fin, pero si no lo tienes, la cinta masking tape puede hacer un buen trabajo. No quiero dejar de hablar de la locación. Trata de tener bastante espacio para el croma. Proyéctate que la persona esté parada aproximadamente de 2 a 3 metros separada del fondo, para evitar que una vez que se ilumine el fondo, haya un rebote de la luz ya de color verde hacia la persona. Mientras más lejos esté la persona del fondo, va a ser más difícil que le caiga un rebote de una luz verde a su espalda. Debes ser tú quien tiene control sobre la luz, por eso es que si hay alguna entrada de luz natural, debes bloquearla como yo lo he hecho para este ejemplo, porque como te imaginarás, a lo largo del día la intensidad y la temperatura de color de la luz va variando, por eso es importante que seas tú quien maneje la luz. Justamente con respecto a la iluminación, a la hora de hacer un croma yo no uso menos de 5 luces, 2 luces suaves para el fondo, en este caso 2 softboxes, 2 luces para la persona que estará frente a cámara y una quinta luz para lograr un brillo en el cabello de la persona. Con respecto a la relación entre el fondo y la persona que sale frente a cámara, hay 2 principios que tenemos que tener en cuenta. El primero es que debemos iluminar el fondo de manera constante, o sea que debe caerle la misma intensidad de luz a la mayor parte de la tela verde. Esto lo puedes comprobar con las cebras de la cámara. Asegúrate de que las cebras estén presentes sobre toda la superficie verde de manera constante. El segundo principio que debes respetar es que la intensidad de luz que caiga sobre la persona debe ser 1 o 2 stops por encima del fondo. Es decir, el sujeto debe estar iluminado con mayor fuerza que el fondo. Todo esto para que la eliminación del fondo sea mucho más sencillo en After Effects. Quiero agradecerle a mi hija Valeria porque una semana más ha aceptado ayudarme para este tutorial. Muchas gracias, Vale. Asegurémonos que todos los movimientos que se produzcan frente a cámara se hagan siempre dentro de esta pantalla verde. Si alguna parte del cuerpo de la persona sale del fondo, no se va a poder cromar. Por eso a la hora de grabar hay que estar muy atentos de que la persona o ninguna parte de su cuerpo salga del fondo. Una manera de atenuar las arrugas e imperfecciones del fondo es alejarse y grabar con un lente largo y luminoso, que te permita desenfocar el fondo. En mi caso yo usé un Sony 50mm 1.8 y un lente Sigma 18-35mm 1.8 también. Entonces eso me ha permitido desenfocar el fondo con mayor facilidad. Hasta aquí entonces la grabación, hagan algo creativo y una vez terminada la grabación nos vamos a la edición.
Bien chicos, y eso fue la explicación de lo que les dije hace un ratito, ¿no? El principio básico de cómo iluminar para hacer el cromado. O sea, acá no estamos cromando todavía. Acá lo que estamos viendo es cómo se ilumina para poder hacer un buen cromado. Voy a poner ahora otro video que, bueno, menciona justo, este video me parece interesante porque menciona los errores más comunes. Y vamos a verlo un ratito.
Seguramente no haga falta explicarte qué es un croma, pero realmente un croma es esto, esto también es un croma, aunque bueno, realmente un croma es esto. Esta pequeña tela verde nos ha hecho soñar y creer que íbamos acompañando a Frodo hacia el monte del destino. Nos ha hecho subirnos en los coches más rápidos del mundo. Incluso nos ha hecho enamorarnos delante de uno de los barcos más importantes de la historia, Titanic. Todo eso está acompañado de muchas y muchas y muchas telas de croma y mucho trabajo de postprocesado. Pero realmente hay 3 errores principales que que se cometen cuando trabajamos con croma. Y si quieres que te los cuente todos, quédate, comenzamos. El primero de los errores es no estirar completamente la tela. Cuando surgen diferentes arruguitas, porque la tela normalmente la guardamos doblada, suele haber ciertos errores y luego ciertos problemas que suceden delante del ordenador que van a ser muy complicados o incluso imposibles de quitar. Por lo tanto, estirar correctamente la tela nos va a ayudar muchísimo después en el proceso de postprocesado, porque con esta tela podemos directamente convertirla en diferentes colores sin ningún tipo de problema, porque podemos trabajarla como fondo neutro. Es un verde, pero al final podemos interpretarlo como queramos. Para estirar correctamente esta tela, yo personalmente lo que suelo usar son pinzas. Puedes tener telas con diferentes agujeritos para poder tensar con cuerdas, quizás sería lo mejor para poder montar en una estructura y que al final se quede lo más tensa posible. Es cierto que no es fácil quizás encontrar estructuras de este tipo, pero también podemos tener en cuenta que colgándola en la pared con una ayuda de pequeñas chinchetas, tornillos o como queramos, podemos igualmente estirar la tela. El único objetivo es que la tela no tenga arrugas muy grandes que proyecten sombras y que luego sean muy complicadas de quitar. Si te das cuenta, hay diferentes arruguitas, ¿vale? Tenemos una tela que, bueno, pues en su totalidad, principalmente por aquí, tenemos algunas arruguitas que cuando pasamos al ordenador realmente desaparecen. ¿Por qué? Porque no están muy marcadas, están simplemente marcadas muy poquito. Lo ideal sería que estuviera completamente recta y completamente estirada. No tener arrugas nos va a ayudar muchísimo después en el trabajo del ordenador. Vamos al segundo tip. Si te das cuenta, sobre todo en esta cámara, en el suelo verás que tengo una pequeña marca. No me puedo mover hacia adelante porque perdería el enfoque de mi cámara, que justamente está en la parte superior, y tampoco me puedo alejar hacia atrás porque mira lo que ocurre cuando me voy hacia atrás. Empiezo a generar diferentes sombras y si esa parte me acerco a donde está la fuente principal de luz que está iluminando mi croma, va a generar una sombra bastante más grande. Esto va a hacer que nuestros errores se multipliquen y la posibilidad de que la toma quede correcta sea muy compleja. Por lo tanto, es muy importante dividir correctamente cuál es la iluminación que va directamente al fondo. En este caso tenemos dos luces que están iluminando completamente al fondo, y cuál es la iluminación que nos va a iluminar a nosotros. También es cierto, la iluminación del fondo tiene que iluminar el fondo correctamente, si te das cuenta que estoy generando diferentes sombras, pero no tiene que iluminarnos a nosotros. Por lo tanto, hay que saber cortar muy bien la luz. Y la iluminación principal, la que nos está iluminando a nosotros, que la tienes justamente por aquí arriba, la tengo de forma frontal, nos tiene que iluminar a nosotros, pero no tiene que invadir el fondo. Si te das cuenta, yo cuando me muevo, a pesar de que está directamente direccionada hacia el fondo, no se va a ver absolutamente nada. ¿Por qué? Si está apuntando hacia el fondo. Estoy jugando con la ley de la inversa al cuadrado de la distancia. Todo esto lo explicaremos más detenidamente en un vídeo, pero eso significa que la luz tiene la posición adecuada y la distancia hacia mí adecuada. Para que nos hagamos una idea, si coloco una luz muy flojita, muy cerca, al fondo no llegará, pero a mí me va a iluminar. Esa es la ley de la inversa al cuadrado de la distancia, que ya digo, la explicaremos más tranquilamente en uno de los vídeos, porque aquí realmente lo que estoy utilizando es esa técnica en todo momento. Y luego, por último, una luz, un contra. La puedo colocar aquí, la puedo colocar aquí, puedo colocar dos, puedo colocar ninguna, puedo hacer lo que quiera. Realmente la luz de contra nos va a permitir recortarnos un poquito, pero claro, luego tenemos que acompañarlo con imágenes que realmente tengan esa luz. Estamos simulando que esa es la luz del sol. Por lo tanto, cuando vayamos a una escena, necesitamos que en esa dirección esté dándonos el sol y nosotros estemos dándole la espalda al sol y frente a la cámara. Hay que tener muchas cosas en cuenta, ¿no? El tercer consejo o problema es no saber adecuadamente cómo trabajar delante del ordenador. Es súper importante tanto la toma, quizás sea lo más importante, y luego también tener un respaldo digital detrás. Necesitamos un ordenador y los software adecuados. Eso quiere decir que tocando las diferentes herramientas vamos a poder conseguir los resultados que realmente vamos buscando. ¿Quieres que te enseñe cómo trabajar con croma? Que te enseñe pasito a pasito con un vídeo dedicado a cómo estiro la tela, porque también tiene su arte, cómo ilumino el croma, que al final creo que es lo más importante de todo, y cómo trabajo detrás del ordenador, que al final son horas y horas y horas para dejarlo bien. Si quieres todo eso, por aquí abajo en los comentarios me lo dejas y encantado puedo crear ese contenido.
Listo, bueno, esa es toda la parte que nos corresponde a lo que... Sobre todo lo que quería que vean de este video es cómo el instructor enfatiza en el hecho de que hay que tener bien estirada la tela, cómo enfatiza en que hay que iluminar el fondo y la iluminación que él tiene es otra, no es la misma. A él lo está iluminando otro reflector, no son los mismos que se utiliza para el fondo, y tiene una luz de backlight, que es para separar un poquito del fondo. Entonces, esto es para poder hacer, como les digo, un buen cromado. Ahora, vamos a ver los sets virtuales. Antes que nada, quiero decirles que los sets virtuales son sets creados por el Tricaster. Y para poder utilizarlos hay que cromar a la persona para que se le pueda ver dentro de ese set virtual. Entonces, vamos a ver. Los sets virtuales son fondos que ya vienen creados por el equipo Tricaster. El Tricaster 460, el que tenemos, ofrece una galería de más de 20 sets virtuales. Sobre estos sets se pueden insertar títulos, logos o fotografías. Se pueden colocar videos o fotos en los monitores que aparecen dentro de los sets virtuales. Vamos a seguir leyendo. Algunas ventajas de los sets virtuales. No se necesita un gran espacio para hacer un set virtual. Solo es necesario que el presentador y sus invitados tengan un fondo verde. Ofrece ahorro de fabricación y mantenimiento de escenografía. No es necesario mover mucho las luces. Al no tener que armar una escenografía completa, se ahorra tiempo. ¿Qué es lo que pasa? Que ustedes deben haber visto en el estudio, cuando se termina de grabar un programa y se quiere hacer otro, hay que cambiar los backings, hay veces que hay que cambiar un poquito la iluminación, y eso que, digamos, las producciones que hacemos, algunas no son pues tan complejas, ¿no? Imaginémonos pues un programa con invitados, con mucha gente, la escenografía sería muy compleja. Una de las ventajas de los sets virtuales es que todo lo hace la computadora. En la realidad, lo único que se está utilizando es el fondo verde. Y eso les digo, como les trae bastantes ventajas en cuanto a lo que es operatividad, ¿no? Ya no se necesita tanta gente y el trabajo es más rápido. Este es un videíto que muestra cómo los diversos modelos de Tricaster, todos pueden hacer sets virtuales, y muestra más o menos cómo son los sets virtuales. Vamos a ver. Bien, eso fue una pequeña muestra de cómo son los sets virtuales. Y les voy a enseñar cuáles son los pasos para utilizar un set virtual. Bien, ahora lo siguiente que vamos a ver son los pasos para utilizar un set virtual. Hemos visto antes más o menos un ejemplo de cómo son los sets virtuales. Ahora vamos a ver cómo es que se hace un set virtual, cómo es que se crea. Paso 1. Se debe primero abrir la opción de Live Sets. Al abrir esta opción aparecerá una galería con diversos ejemplos de sets virtuales, como aparece acá en la foto. Aparecen diversos ejemplos. Algunos sets son para que el presentador esté de pie y otros están diseñados para que esté sentado. Ahora, ojo, si algún día ustedes utilizan un set virtual donde el conductor del programa esté de pie, no solamente hay que poner la tela verde de fondo, sino que hay que poner un piso verde. Si no, no se le van a ver los pies. Entonces, hay que ponerle el piso verde y tener al personaje totalmente cromado, de pies a cabeza. Cuando es un set virtual donde aparece una persona sentada, eso no es necesario. Ahí sí, con tener el fondo verde simplemente es suficiente. Paso 2. Una vez que hayamos escogido un set virtual determinado, cromamos al conductor o conductores que deseamos aparezcan dentro del set virtual. En este caso, estas dos personas, por ejemplo. Para eso tendremos que arrastrar, presionando el clic izquierdo del mouse, la plumilla que dice color y ponerla encima del fondo verde, o sea, esta de acá. Arrastrarla y ponerla sobre el fondo verde, donde están los conductores. Una vez hecho esto, soltamos el clic. Entonces vamos a ver la siguiente. Y si hacemos ese paso, van a aparecer dentro del set virtual, ¿no? O sea, miren la diferencia, ¿no? La realidad es esta. Un espacio pequeño, con una tela verde, las dos personas en un plano medio, y simplemente arrastrando esta plumilla hacia acá al fondo verde, podemos hacer que aparezca en este set. Un set grande, con una mesa. Acá se le puede agregar un título, fotos, o sea, se pueden agregar más cosas. Este monitor de al fondo se le puede poner un video. Una vez hecho este procedimiento, aparecerán los conductores sobre el fondo virtual que hayamos escogido, como vemos acá en la foto. Este es un ejemplo muy, muy simple de un set virtual. Vamos a verlo.
Bonjour, legends. Good day, chap. I'm Nicole, and I have just been selected to.
Voy a parar un ratito solamente para que vean. Esta chica está en plano medio. Tiene un video acá que se lanza desde un DR y se le pone su título, ¿no? Y está en este fondo, con este fondo de set virtual. O sea, es un ejemplo muy simple, pero que ya nos da una idea de las cosas que se pueden hacer.
Travel to London and Paris this summer as a student ambassador with People to People. Okay, I know my accent isn't all that good, but it could be better if I spend just a little time in both of these countries. Now, you might be thinking it's just a vacation, but it's educational. I get to see the Mona Lisa, the Eiffel Tower, and I get to ride the London Eye. I only read about these places in my history books or see them on TV, but you can help turn these history pages into a living journey by sponsoring me for $20. Think about this. 18 holes of golf is about $55, and a styling shampoo at the hair salon is about $45. Now, a trip around the world, only $20. Now that's a bargain, and you're helping to build my future. Simply click the Donate Now button on my website, www.aroundtheworldin14days.com, and I'll be on my way to a journey of a lifetime. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.
Bien, como les dije, este es un ejemplo súper básico de cómo es un set virtual. Ahora, ¿cómo funciona un set virtual? Vamos a ver este video.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of New Tech Tuesday Tutorials. I am your host Richard Evans, and today I want to show you a simple but very powerful tutorial on how to combine your shots with a green screen background and then embed them into a virtual set. So let's dive in and take a look. Alright, so here we are in the Tricaster TC1 interface, and normally in my videos you're seeing me on a virtual set, kind of like what's going on over here in my program window. But today I want to show you how to do all of this from scratch. So you'll see that I'm just here in my office. I'm not really doing anything fancy. I have some green screen fabric behind me, and then I have two lights on the left and the right of me here just to light myself, and then I do have a light that's above me to light the green screen that's behind me so I can pull a good key off of it. But let's go back into the interface and kind of start to work around to see how we can combine all of these elements to make myself appear in a virtual set. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to set up in my preview window mix effects number 2 so I can have them on top of each other, so to speak. Alright, now what I want to do is open up my mix effect number 2 to show you how to set up one of your mix effects as a virtual set. So by default, these mix effects are already set up where they're going to be a switcher, like a secondary switcher. So, I mean, if you look over to the right, you'll see that I even have my transition bar here, so I can move between shots and 4 upstream keyers. But what I want to do is turn that transition into a virtual set. So, what we'll do is in this transition box, we'll click on the transition itself, and then you'll see that I have my 9 different presets for different transitions to use. But I want to turn this into a virtual set, so let's go ahead and I'm going to click the plus button on number 3. You can do it on any of these presets, but I'm going to click on this plus button, and instead of selecting a transition, let me scroll to the top of our media browser here to show you all the different virtual sets that are included on the Tricaster. Now, if you're missing some virtual sets on your particular unit, make sure you go and download the latest update for your software, and be sure to click on the New Tech content pack that comes with it so that you can get all of these delightful virtual sets. Okay? So I'm just going to go through here and browse, and I'm going to go pick up a virtual set that you haven't seen me do a demonstration in here before. Okay? So let's select Demo Studio, and I'm going to select the center angle here. Alright, and now, right now this is just set up because of the original positioning and choices of my shots of what I have currently in that virtual set. So you'll see on this particular virtual set I have 2 different options for putting elements into the virtual set here. So I can control what's in that screen on the left and what's going on behind that desk. So let's go ahead and position or put whatever we want into these screens here. So let's say that I'm going to do like a talk show. I'm going to select input number 7 on my B row, which will be the screen that's over here, so I can talk to this girl when she's playing her video games. And then let's go ahead and I'm going to put myself, my shot, into that area where the dancer is right now on this A layer. So I'll select input number 1. So now you can see I'm on this virtual set, and I can, turn over and talk to my guest on my show, but I still have this green screen that's behind me and part of my desk element. So let's go back into the interface and get rid of all that. So to do that, let's open up the settings for my particular input number 1, by clicking on the gear icon in the bottom right of that input. And then you'll see that I have different options in here for me to make some adjustments. So the first thing that I want to do under the image tab is open up crop source, because I have, this desk lamp over here and one of my cameras. Let's just cut those off so that I don't even have to worry about those. So I'll go ahead and put a checkbox next to crop source. And I have these options here for manipulating where I want that crop to be, so I can scoot it in a little bit, and then you just start to cut pieces off. I don't want to be able to cut my elbows off or my hands off or anything like that, so that's looking pretty good. And you can also adjust for the top and also the bottom of your shot as well if you need to. But this is looking pretty good, so let's move on to the next element, which is going to be turning on the green screen keyer. And that is referred to as Live Matte within the New Tech Tricaster. So from here, to select the color that you want to key out of your background, the easiest way to do that is to grab your mouse and hover over next to where it says color here. Right now it's selected as green, but you'll see that I have a selector tool that shows up when I get into this color box. And all you have to do is, using your mouse, left click and hold, and then basically scroll around the screen until you find the color that you want to key out. So you'll notice if I go next to input 1 here, I can select this blue. So if I was on a blue screen, same thing. It doesn't really matter. But I'm going to go and drop this next to my face here and let go. Boom. And now this is keyed out. Now my input 1 source is going to be blacked out, whatever is, where the green is going to be. But when we go into our virtual environment, you'll see that that's been completely removed and it's just me here in this virtual set. Now, I'm going to go back into my mix effect number 2, and let's go ahead and zoom into this shot using this positioner tool. So now I'm on a completely new virtual set and have full control over what elements I want to bring on or off screen during my broadcast. So as you can see, using our mix effects is a great way to combine your green screen footage with virtual sets and put you into any environment that you can think of. Now, if you like this demonstration but want a little bit more, make sure you go to newtek.com/demo to sign up for personalized demonstrations by yours truly. Also, be sure to follow us and tag us in your posts on Instagram, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more videos like this at youtube.com/newtekinc. Until then, thank you for watching, and be sure to tune in next time for another edition of NewTek Tuesday Tutorials.
Bien, chicos, esos fueron los pasos para cromar. Como ven, este señor estaba en su oficina, en un espacio reducido, y terminó pues dentro de un gran set, ¿no? Entonces, esa es la ventaja que nos da el set virtual. Parecer que estuviéramos en un gran set cuando en realidad estamos en una habitación pequeña. Y finalmente quiero pasarles este video que resume un poquito todo, desde el croma hasta el set virtual, la iluminación, todo lo que hemos visto hasta ahorita. Entonces, vamos a verlo y con esto ya terminamos.
Hi, and welcome to CMAX training video for using the green screen and the virtual sets. In this video, we'll discuss how to key the green screen, set a new background by using a picture, video footage, or one of many of the Tricaster's pre-made virtual sets. But before you get started, there are some key things to be aware of. Keying the green screen successfully requires adequate lighting. CMAX staff has already taken the necessary steps to ensure this. However, it is important to make sure that all the lights assigned to the virtual set are turned on. Next, you'll want to place your talent in front of the green screen. The trick to a good key is finding out how far away you can have your talent stand from the green screen and still have good lighting with a full green background. To demonstrate this, we will use CMAX Studio Mannequin, the only person who doesn't mind standing still until you've gotten your cameras and lighting just right. The further you are, the better. The closer you are, the more the green from the backdrop will spill onto your talent, which will not only cause problems when you attempt to key out the green, but will appear on your video as poor lighting. So always make sure that you place your talent a few feet away from the screen itself. Now we're ready to set up our shots. The next thing you'll do is set up the cameras you'd like to use with the green screen. You can use 1, 2, or all 3. Whichever makes the best sense for your show. Once you've chosen your cameras, set your shots to your preference and then lock the cameras down. Once you have committed to using the green screen, the option to move the camera while recording is no longer available. Next, we'll move into the control room to finish the rest of the setup process. When we're talking about virtual sets, it's important to understand that we're really talking about mix effects. That is, mixing one input, say a camera, with another, like a picture. The inputs are located in 2 places. On the physical control surface, it looks like this. The digital representation will also be visible on the screen. Both will do the same things. It's just up to the user to decide which they'd like to use. Using the digital interface, you will select one of the corresponding ME tabs. They will be labeled and numbered 1 through 8 via ME1, ME2, ME3, and so on. Just like we have 8 buttons for cameras, we will have 8 for our mix effects. But just as we only have 3 cameras actually plugged in, we will only use 3 mix effects, or ME tabs at most. Since a virtual set is really a composite, 2 images merged together to be seen as one, each camera, depending on how many you use, will need to be composited and assigned to its own ME tab. Once selected on an ME tab, you must delegate what goes in the A input and what goes into the B input. Remember, we're working with a composited image. We will need to tell the Tricaster which is our first image and what is our second. And most importantly, which one goes in front, i.e. A over B. This is the default setting for our ME's options. To use a virtual set, this would need to be changed, but we'll cover that a little later. I know that my talent is on camera 1, and I want him or her in front of a new background. So I'll choose 1 here on the A bus. If I want to use a picture, I'll choose the location I saved it in, either Graphics 1 or Graphics 2 in the B bus. And if I want a motion background, like a video, then I'll choose whichever location I saved that in, i.e. DDR1 or DDR2. Now let's key out the green in the camera. On the Tricaster interface, you'll see that each of the cameras has a window. Looking at camera 1, in the lower right corner, there is a small gear icon. Selecting that, a new window of options will appear. Here, we'll click on Live Matte. This is the control panel for keying out the green screen. Click and hold the dropper tool, drag it over to the green in the camera, and let go of the mouse. The background goes from green to black, telling us that our background is now transparent. We're almost ready to composite in our background, but not quite yet. If you notice, we have a little bit of green washing over onto the hair and the face. In this same control panel, you have some other controls that will help with this. You can adjust your smooth and tolerance levels until you find a blend that eliminates as much of the green as possible. Once you've finished with the adjustments, you'll be ready to set up your virtual set. It's good practice to start with ME1 if you're only using one camera with a green screen. If you're using all 3 cameras, it's less confusing if you assign each camera to its corresponding number, i.e. camera 1 is assigned to ME1, camera 2 to ME2, and so on. Let's start with ME1. I'll make sure this tab is highlighted. I'll select the corresponding number in the A bus, and then select the appropriate location for my background on the B bus. Done. Now I'll be able to use my newly composited image for my show. All I have to do is press ME1 on the switcher, and the virtual set is now visible. If I were using all the cameras on the green screen, I would simply repeat these steps for each. And once I'm ready to begin my show, I'd only use the ME buttons on the switcher to either cut to or change cameras on my virtual set. Now let's discuss the pre-made templates that are offered within the Tricaster itself. Setting up and using a template is just as simple and easy. After the cameras have been appropriately keyed and you're ready to choose your background, simply click on the plus sign icon here next to Default. A new window pops up and gives you a range of options to choose from. By scrolling down, you can see a variety of virtual sets to work with. Depending on your needs, some will be a simple background, like this one. Others will give you a little flexibility in customizing the set with any graphics or videos you would like to display. These will allow you to have 2 inputs, your talent in one, and then your picture or video in the other. The set will display what input will appear where. For example, in this virtual set, you can see where your talent will be, which is represented by the grayed out area labeled A, and then where your picture or video will be displayed, labeled B. Simply come down here and choose where those images will be coming from. So I'll choose 1 for A and graphics for B. The last thing we'll briefly cover is using multiple cameras for some of these virtual sets. Many times you'll see that one particular design has 3 different options. These are different angles that are based on a typical 3-camera talk show type setup. Like for this set, we have a left, a right, and a center angle to be used with all 3 of our studio cameras. You don't have to use these, but you can see that they do help add a little more realism to your virtual set. That about wraps up our training video for using the green screen and using the virtual sets. Remember, Staff is always available to answer any questions or concerns you may have in using our equipment, and we'll be happy to assist you when you're ready to begin recording your show. Thank you for watching.
Bien, chicos, y ese fue el video que resume lo que hemos visto hoy, desde cómo iluminar para el croma, poner en posición la cámara, cromar a la persona, en este caso fue un maniquí, y de ahí seleccionar los sets virtuales para hacer nuestra producción. Eso sería entonces la clase de hoy.